Hi, everybody. My name is Jason Vallad, and I'm an instructional designer and master trainer here at TechSmith. I want to welcome you to this session of Learn One New Thing, all about the Snagit Toolbar. Now, if you're new to this Learn New One Thing series, it's basically the smaller pieces of our larger webinars where people wanted more information, but we just didn't have enough time to dedicate to it. So we're breaking up our products, Snagit, Camtasia, Audiate, into smaller digestible chunks. Today, we're just going to talk about the toolbar. So buckle up. Hope you're here and ready to have some fun. I am going to be working on Snagit 2023 and using a Windows PC running Windows 10. So let's get ourselves up and running. First, let's go over today's agenda. Pretty simple because it's a short, less than 30-minute session. We're going to talk about a brief tool overview. I'm not going to dive into any tool in specifically. We're going to expand the More button. It might be something you didn't even know that was there. And the biggest part of the toolbar, which is the most helpful to me, customizing your toolbar for your use case. Super helpful, super easy to do. First, let's answer the very first question that comes up in every webinar. Hey, Jason, is this being recorded? Yep. Today's webinar is 100% being recorded, and you will get a link to that recording sometime in the next 24 hours. So you'll be able to review this recorded session. You'll be able to share it with people, catch the places that maybe I went a little fast, or just use it as a reference for your learning and further down the road. One big thing that I want you to know about is down in the Zoom webinar interface, there is two sections where you can talk. One is the chat section where we are letting everybody know where we're coming from. It's where you say hi to people and talk about cool things that are happening maybe in the webinar. But there's also a Q&A section. Now, in that Q&A section, I have a plethora of TechSmithies joining me today. I have Brandon, Melissa, Meredith, Robert, and Troy, and they're here to help answer your questions to the best of their ability. We can't promise we'll get to all the questions, but we want to make sure that if you have a question, post it in the Q&A section, and we'll do our best to answer those in that chat. And if they find them valuable, they'll send them over to me, and we'll answer them live on screen. Now, I know I don't want to talk about the end of the webinar right now, but I'm going to for a second, because when you log off, you are going to be presented with a 1-minute 4-question survey that I really would appreciate you taking the time to fill out. It just lets us know, hey, did we do a good job? Where could we work better? How can we make these webinars better for you? As well as maybe giving some general feedback, because we read through all those, and the ideas for our webinars, including this Learn One New Thing series, came from that feedback. So thanks for taking the time to do that. Last but not least, we do have the live transcription enabled here in Zoom webinar that allows you to turn on closed captioning. Zoom does a pretty good job of translating what we're saying live. So if you find that valuable to you, you go ahead and toggle that on and utilize that. That's it for slides until the very end. So let's get ourselves into the Snagit editor. So here is my Snagit editor, and I have it set up right now. There's an image on the screen, but I have everything else set up, the tools and whatnot, and the toolbar set up in what I call a vanilla state, or what it would look like when you install Snagit for the very first time. So our focus is going to be around the toolbar. First and foremost, the toolbar is this section at the top of your screen. It starts with the library on the far left, the capture button, the create button. That's going to be in a Learn One New Thing series coming up very soon. The tools across the top, as well as the copy all button and the share link button. So the tools as they stand, these are your pretty standard things. This is what Snagit is known for, the ability to add arrows or text or call out. And every time you click on one of these tools, the area on the right dynamically changes, the properties area, which is also an upcoming Learn One New Thing about Snagit. But every time you click on a different tool, you have the ability to modify your image, to annotate it, to make changes with different colors, shapes, text, so on and so forth. One thing I want people to know, and you might not know this, as if you hover over any one of these tools for any period of time, we have these things, these tooltips that pop up that give you a real quick sense of what that tool does. So if we hover over this text tool, it gives you a little animation of what the text tool looks like and what it does. It's really helpful for people that may not be familiar with the tool, like this fill tool. Like, what is that used for? I've seen that paint bucket. Well, this gives you a quick view as to what it can do for your particular image. So the tools are available to you at the top here, and they're super, super helpful. The one thing people get surprised by is when I show a tool in a webinar or in a tutorial that they don't see on their toolbar. Like there's a tool like the blur tool, which is a very popular tool in Snagit, or the step tool. Well, depending on how big your monitor is and how large you have things scaled up, there's only so much that fits on that toolbar at one time. So we typically put the rest of those tools underneath this button right here that's called the More button. And what happens is you simply click on that button and it expands to show you a ton of other tools underneath the toolbar. Everything from our Simplify tool, which helps you create simplified user interface images. That's a learn one new thing that's coming up. The Magic Wand, the Crop tool, there's the Eraser tool, there's the Pen tool. There's all kinds of stuff, the Blur that we talked about before. So just by clicking that More button exposes your toolbar to a lot of other tools. And if you happen to choose one of those tools, like let's say we wanted to use the Blur tool today. If I click on the Blur tool, it's immediately going to take the place of the left position right to the left of the More button. So if I'm using the Blur tool, that is going to show up on the left of that More dropdown. If I'm done using the More tool and I want to say use the Step tool, it will occupy that same spot. So I could, in theory, leave things in my More dropdown and just select them as needed. But that's not how I work. In fact, there are a lot of tools that are on the toolbar right now that I don't use on a regular basis. And there's an awful lot of tools in that More dropdown that I would find more value in having available to me on my toolbar at all times. And this is where I believe the power of the toolbar comes into place. When we really made the ability for you to customize it a few years ago, the tagline was make Snagit yours. And it was the ability to favorite tools, to add them to your toolbar, or favorite specific styles or colors of arrows or anything like that. But the value of customizing your toolbar I love doing it because it's fun and I can change it depending on the different projects that I'm working on. So let's take a second and see how you would customize the toolbar. It's actually pretty easy to do and it's kind of fun, to be honest. You click on the More button, and at the very bottom of the tool list, there is an option that says Customize Toolbar. So when you click on that, it exposes this interactive, draggable state of the toolbar. This exposed menu, if we scroll through it, shows all the available tools that can be put on that toolbar. And making changes is really easy to do. For example, there are tools up here on the toolbar that I use very infrequently. One of them is the Shape tool. So I'm actually going to remove this from my toolbar. And here's how you do it. You click on the Shape tool, drag it down into this menu somewhere, and let go of your mouse button. Just like that, it takes it off my toolbar and removes it from view. It's still available to me. In fact, it'll be in the More dropdown, but it's not there any longer. I don't use our Stamp tool probably as much as I should, so I'm going to pull the Stamp tool off. And I don't use the Fill button very much. And when I do, I know I can always go back and grab it. So when I have removed those three from the toolbar, my toolbar has gotten a little bit smaller. And you'll notice that there's these giant spacers on the left and right that are available to me. And that allows me to move some things around. The first thing I want to do is I'm going to add some tools to the toolbar that I use on a regular basis. And the number one tool that I always add when I install Snagit is this one, the Cutout tool. I use the Cutout tool so often, and I use it often enough that I'm going to click on it and drag it up onto my toolbar, and I'm going to put it all the way to the left between the favorites and arrows, because that's just how I like it. You don't have to put it there. You can put it wherever you want, but you have the ability to customize its location based on the best use case for you. I also use the Step tool quite often, so that's going to go up here. I'll put that one between text and callouts. I use that enough that I want it available to me at a quick click. Now, not only the drawing tools are used by me on a regular basis, there's actually a lot of tools in here that are really helpful as well. So I'm going to scroll down here. There's menu options. There's everything from rotate an image to flatten to delete to grab text. Ryan, a friend of mine who's also on the customer education team here at TechSmith, uses New from Clipboard on a regular basis. And I'm just not strong enough of a user of that particular tool to put it on my toolbar. I am considering it. I am finding myself print things quite often. So I'm actually going to grab the print button, and I'm not going to drag it to the main part of the toolbar. I'm going to drag it over here to the left because I want the printer all by itself on the left of that spacer. So it creates this area where I can move things around. The next thing I'm going to add as we scroll down is share destinations. Okay, this is the clutch part. Now, Snagit 2023, the brand new version of it, has a link to the new version of modern screencasts. So if you share an image using the share link in the upper right hand corner, it goes right to screencasts, easy to share, easy for people to consume it, easy for you to go and have a conversation around a piece of media. But I also send my images and my videos to other places. One place often is Camtasia. So I'm going to click Camtasia and drag it over here to the right because I send images and videos into Camtasia on a regular basis while I'm building a video. I also send things to Slack, which is our internal communication tool. I send those there all the time. It's because it's easy. It's how we're having a conversation around things. I do those as well. I can also share links, but that's the main things that I share on my toolbar. And then often I will send things just to my desktop or to a folder somewhere on our files. So I will add a file location there where I can click on it and save it somewhere on my system so that it's easy for people to find, or easy for me to find it, and maybe attach it in an email later on or part of a presentation later on. It's what you can do. So as we scroll down the list, there's other things in here like our effects where you could add an edge effect or watermark or anything like that. You can make this toolbar work best for you in your situation. So that being said, when I'm done with my toolbar, when I'm ready for it to be completed for me, all I need to do is click on the Done button. It closes that customization menu and it sets up my instance of Snagit so that it's ready to go. So if I want that step tool now, all I have to do is click on it. Maybe I want to use this yellow steps, and I'll say, first you go to the search bar, then you go to pricing, and then you go to get started. And those are a little small, so I can always adjust them later on. But that's how quickly I can then access those tools because they're readily available for me on my toolbar. Now, one thing we didn't talk about as much is under that customization toolbar menu at the very bottom of the list, there's two things I want to point out to you. One is you have the ability to put a spacer in. So I could click and drag a spacer up and separate my tools if I wanted. Maybe these are the annotations tools, and these are the tools that I use for modifying the image like cutouts or blurs or anything like that. I can put those items in wherever I want or need them. And if I ever want to get back to the brand new version of Snagit, like I just started over, I can always click this Restore Defaults button, which takes my toolbar and allows you to set it right back to the beginning state. So it's really, really easy and helpful to be able to set up your station the way you want it. So that being said, I now have a toolbar that's ready for me to use. I can move things around. I can add tools inside the favorites menu. If you're not familiar with the favorites menu, that's part of the toolbar as well. This is another quick access step that you have inside of Snagit. For example, the cutout tool. Like I said, I use this so often. I can go over to the quick styles and I can pick one that I use on a regular basis. Like for me, I use this horizontal cut tool. I can click on it and click the little star, which will then add it directly to my favorites menu. So now I have that readily available for me even quicker than just having it available as on my toolbar. So when it comes to using the toolbar, you can customize it to your own liking and change it out whenever you want. If I'm working on a project that's just Camtasia, I can have it right there. I have it available and I can remove it later on if I need to. So that being said, I'm going to actually pop over to our questions and see if there's questions that have come in so far. So this is a great question. Someone asks is, what are your favorite tools that are hidden by default? Definitely the ones that I just put on there. So the step tool, the cutout tool, I move those up immediately. I would say if I were to ask the general public what's their favorite ones that are hidden by default, it's definitely the blur tool. By far, people use blur inside of Snagit all the time. So more often than not, to be honest, probably should put it up there for myself as well. So I'm going to click the blur tool and drag it up there so that I've got it available to me as well. But the best part about which tools are my favorites is they're different for everybody based on the different applications of how you're using Snagit. So that's kind of cool to be able to have that flexibility right within the tool as well. Let's see. The blur tool is one that's, like I said, people use often. When you select it, you can pick the level of blur or pixelization, and you simply click and drag over an image, and that blurs and obfuscates that section of the image right there. So you have that capability right within Snagit. Another question is, please show the flexible arrow icon. I'm not quite sure what that one is. So whoever posted that one, would you be able to give me a little bit more clarification, my fellow TechSmithies, and let me know what the flexible arrow icon was? I think I know what you're talking about, but I don't want to make an assumption. Cool. Let's see here. The biggest thing, so I'm finding out from the group that number one people that I'd love to know, what tool did you discover underneath the More dropdown that you think is most helpful for you that you'll be putting on your toolbar later on? So let me also give you a quick, if you're a keyboard shortcut person, and some of us initiate tool launches, the ability to do that right from your keyboard. All of the tools in your toolbar are also by default have a keyboard shortcut associated with them. For example, the favorites menu is Control 2. If I click on Control 3, I switch to the cutout tool, Control 4, 5 is text, 6, and so on. So I can quickly switch tools if I'm a keyboard shortcut user to be able to apply those tools right within my keyboard without having to use my mouse at that moment. So that's pretty helpful as well. I'm guessing, if anyone wants to turn on their mic, I'm guessing the curved arrow thing people are talking about.
Yeah, Robert here.
Robert. Go for it.
Yeah, I'm thinking it's the Bezier curve in the arrow, in the line arrows. So
Sure.
That's what they're looking for.
Sure. So we can talk about it for sure. I'll give you a little bit of an overview. So people ask about this often. There is, in the arrows tool, there's a little nondescript button that says Bezier. I always say Bezier. It's Bezier. It's kind of like GIF. It's a long conversation. I'm sure there's a correct way to say it, where you can apply a curve to an arrow. So if I click and add an arrow to my screen and have that arrow selected, I can choose Bezier curve, which automatically curves that arrow out, which allows you to manipulate the ends of the arrow and create those curved effects. And you can grab any of these little handles and make adjustments. So if you want to go around content or you want to have a different approach based on your use case, that's all a Bezier curve does. And what's really interesting is, as soon as you add one to your image, if you're going to use that style of curved arrow again, you can click the little plus button to the bottom right of it and add it to your quick style so it's available, and even take it a step further and click that star arrow or the star icon, which will add it to your favorites on your toolbar, so that curved arrow is ready to be applied again. It's pretty awesome that you can then manipulate it however you need based on your use case. So, yep, I hope that answered that question. Yeah, so the other questions that have come in, and a lot of them are around specific tools, and I want to make sure that we've covered everything that we said we would cover. So we wanted to talk about the More dropdown, which is pretty simple, right? That's why these Learn One New Thing webinars are really, really short and sweet. We expose the More tool, which allows you to see all the other tools that are available. And then we talked about customizing the toolbar. So the next question people are coming up with is the step tool. So I did use this before. The step tool is incredibly helpful tool for people to show steps without having to add a lot of text. So let's back all the way out of this image. We'll undo everything. So the step tool, which I added to my toolbar, allows you to add numerical or alphanumerical steps to an image. So if I wanted to say, first you click on the home button, I would click on this, and then I would probably make this button a little bit bigger, however big I wanted it, depending on my image. So I'd say first you click on the home, and then I might have one that says, then you add, you type in your search terms, and then when it brings it up, I would click on Learn More. Every time you click the button in the step tool, it creates the next sequential part of the steps. You can modify them by right-clicking on them, and you can restart the sequence. You can edit the values. You can change their shapes. If maybe I want that one to be a purple letter, I can do that as well. You have all the properties where you can manipulate them over here on the right. The step tool is a pretty valuable way of sharing quick information without typing a lot of stuff, or in this case, not even having to shoot a video. So very, very, very helpful. Let's see. So I'm going to go through and see if there's any other questions because I've covered what I wanted to cover today, which is why these are so valuable. Short and sweet and get to this stuff. Yeah, I agree, Rose. I use the step tool on a regular basis. So being able to not live without it, that's a true statement for me, and I will stand by that for sure. All right. So, oh, this is a good question. So someone is asking about our callout tool. So the callouts, when I first learned about Snagit, so many years ago, before I was part of the TechSmith family, a lot of people used Snagit for adding arrows and text. I liked to use it with the callout tool. So the callout tool is the ability to create a shape with text associated with it. Some people use an arrow with text on it. Some people use like a speech bubble. More often, people will use an image like this to create a little call out with an arrow or a tag that tags part of the image, and then you double click in here and you would type in what you wanted to say. Recently, we've also added the ability, because people asked, to add an additional arrow. So maybe this piece of information is calling out several things. Around this image, you'll see the white dots where you can resize the image itself. You can rotate it using the green dot at the top, but there's also one on here that's blue. And when you grab that one, you can drag that out, and that creates another arrow, another call or pointer, and I can drag this wherever I want. Maybe I want one that's over here at the Learn More button. So I can have one call out do a lot of work for my image. So if I said, click here for more info, and then I wanted to make that much bigger so everybody could read it, I now have a single call out that's referencing multiple parts of the screen. So all of that was available because I put the call out in the toolbar and it made it available for me right away. So let's make sure, is there any other, okay. Oh, here's a great question that Judy just put in. If I'm using a tool, how do I stop using that tool from my toolbar and pick something else? This happens a lot, right? So I'll add a call out and then I'll go click over here, assuming I want to click on that part of the image, and I'll start drawing another call out. So the way to do that, the way to deselect that particular tool is to grab the move tool. So some people move this all the way to the left and they have it available to them, or they have it memorized as a keyboard shortcut, but the move tool just gives you your pointer back, and it then allows you to manipulate other parts of the image as well. So it's almost like deselecting one tool and selecting another one as well. All right, let's see. Team, we've got just a couple more minutes here. Let's see if there's any other questions we want to answer about the toolbar, because we're definitely talking about the toolbar today. And if it's not about the toolbar specifically, we'll see where else you can do that. Guido asks, I often use resize image and resize canvas. Can these be on the toolbar? Well, that's a great question. So underneath that more dropdown, and we go to the customize toolbar, anything that's in this list can be added to the toolbar itself. So manipulation of the canvas itself is not in here, but I do believe, the ability to make changes to the canvas itself where you're resizing are not necessarily ones that are part of the toolbar. Those are still part of your standard drop-down menus over here. I call those more finishing tools, where you're going to resize it or reposition it for something like that. Yep. Great question, though. I'm glad you asked that. So reminder, I am using a Windows machine here. The Mac version has very similar, if not exactly the same, ability to customize your toolbar. It looks a little different because of how the Mac interface is, but it's the same property. You can move things around. You can drag them into place. They don't have a restore button on the bottom. They actually have a default toolbar that you click and drag the entire toolbar up, and it replaces the entire toolbar to the default state. It's kind of cool. Just different depending on your machine. So that's good. Yep. Absolutely. So let's make sure if I have any other questions that have come through here. I think we've covered all the questions that I'm able to answer live, because our team is taking care of all of them. So I'm giving my thanks to Robert and Meredith and Troy and Melissa and Brandon for helping you guys actually answer those questions for me. So I appreciate that very much. So as a wrap up, I customize my Snagit toolbar the moment I install a new version of Snagit. Now, Snagit keeps the version of the toolbar that I had in place with the previous version, but I always make subtle adjustments. Like, as a matter of fact, after this session is over, I'll probably make some changes to this toolbar for my upcoming projects so that it's always ready for me at that moment's notice. If I don't have a tool on the toolbar, it's totally okay. They're always available to me in the more dropdown. Like we removed the shape tool and we removed the stamp tool and the fill tool from my visible toolbar, but they're the first three options available to me in my more dropdown. So I didn't delete them. I just removed them from quick access inside the toolbar itself. Last call for questions from a team of TechSmithies before we say thanks for being here. Now, reminder, when you're done with the webinar and you sign off, there is going to be that quick 1-minute 4-question survey that allows you to give us quick feedback about how we did on this session. And maybe if there's things you want to learn more about, we appreciate that as well. I think we are good to go. So everyone, thank you so much for being here. There is another learn more. Well, let's just tease it out here. There is a additional learn one new thing scheduled for this coming Monday. The quick styles and themes. So we're going to talk all about the quick styles over here on the left, everything from colors to customization to creating your own color themes. Like I have one here that's just Snagit colors. So if I want the Snagit blue on this image, I've got it available to me. It couldn't be easier to make a theme, and it's kind of fun to do. So we hope you're able to sign up and join us. That's at techsmith.com/webinars. And keep an eye on that page because there's going to be some new look to that page. And I have got a ton of new Learn One New Thing sessions planned to go. So that being said, let's go to our final slide here. And that is, thanks so much for attending. I appreciate you being here and taking the time out of your day. You are going to get an email with this recording sometime in the next 24 hours. So easily by lunch, you'll have it tomorrow with the recordings. You'll be able to review whatever you'd like. And if you are stuck on anything, we are here to help. Support.techsmith.com. In fact, a couple people that were helping you today, Brandon and Melissa and Robert, are here as part of that support team. And the other people in the group, Troy, part of the leadership team here at TechSmith, we're listening and trying to figure out what we can do to make the products better for you. And Meredith, who's on the Snagit team, she's one of the UX designers to make sure things look right and play right for you on a regular basis. So thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you. Have a wonderful balance of your day. Take care.